Hey guys, Corth Camel ADV. Since the Honda TransAlp came out, we've been getting a lot of requests for a high fender kit for it. So happy to announce that we do have one now. We're going to do the install video for that product tonight. Something I need to say right from the get-go is install on this is a bit of a pain. If you are new to working on bikes, this probably isn't one that you want to tackle on your own. If you have a friend who's mechanically inclined, has a good selection of tools, and a good workspace, then that's a good option, or taking it to a shop to do it. It's a little bit fiddly mounting the main brake line that is over top of the rad on this bike, very tight clearances, and it's just not a great project for beginners. I'll go through obviously the install and everything that's involved, and how to deal with the upper brake line off of the master cylinder. So this spot up here is why this is a really challenging install. You can see on the back side we have the hard line that's going into the fitting, and then we have the rubber hose coming off of, we've got the mounting bracket here on the fitting, and then behind it, behind my finger here, is the hard line that comes in. So getting that hard line unthreaded from the main fitting here for the brake line is where the challenge comes in. Unfortunately, the radiator's in the way, and to get the rad out, you basically have to strip most of the bike apart. All the plastics have to come off. It's not just a matter of fairings. Fairings need to come off. The brackets on the back need to come off. Everything up here does. It's just not feasible to do it. So we've got a bit of a trick here to get that out, but again, it's not a great kit for a beginner garage mechanic or DIY mechanic. So I just want to show you this first so you know exactly what you're getting into. So we've got the kit here. We're going to include the Galfer braided stainless brake hoses. We've got a billet aluminum fender mount bracket. We've got the fork guard adapters. We've got hose guides. All the other miscellaneous stuff. We're including our polypropylene fork guards. So obviously it's a high fender kit, so you do need a fender for it. The fender is not included in this kit. This is the same as all of the high fender kits that we do. There's a few reasons for us not including the fender. One is the size of the box that we need to ship to you. Almost all of our product gets exported out of Canada, so shipping expenses are a big concern for us because we obviously have to pass that expense on to you. We buy fenders at nearly retail rate, so the price that we would be selling these parts to you at would be far more than you could just go down to your local bike shop and purchase a fender. So the part number for the fenders that we recommend are on the product page on the website. On all of our high fender kits, the Polysport UFX SM line is what we run on our own bikes with our high fender kit. So there's a bunch of different colors available. Like I said, those part numbers are on the website. You can get them from you can get them off Amazon, eBay. If you're in the US, you can get them. Rocky Mountain ATV has them. Chaparral, anybody like that, any of the big guys. Motorsport as well will have them, and they're available. They're made in Portugal. They are available worldwide. Just have a look on the site for the part numbers. You don't need any special tools to do this job, but if you have a bike lift or access to a bike lift, it does make a big difference just with that fiddly upper brake hose. If you can have it kind of working at head level or hand level rather than laying on the ground, it'll make life a lot easier for you. So to get started here, we're going to pop off the original low fender. So to come down here, we've got one bolt here, we've got 2, 3 here. And while I'm right here, I'm going to get this bolt out. It just holds the 3-way split here for the brake hose. And just coming around to the other side to do the same. And once that's done, you can grab the section here that has a reflector on it. It's just a cover. It's got little plastic clips in it. And you can set it aside. And with that done, we can grab the whole low fender. These little side wings here, they need to get pushed in so they go between the fork legs. So we're going to install our fork guard adapters. They just mount on here like this and give us a spot to mount our fork guards. So we're going to take the M6x16 Euro head bolts, dab of blue Loctite. Pretty much everything on here is going to get a dab of blue Loctite, whether I say it or not. Just always a good idea on a bike that gets ridden in rough terrain. Things tend to rattle loose. So we're going to take out the top caliper bolt. Can remove it and set it aside. We won't be reusing it. We're going to take our hose guides here and our M8 by 35 socket head bolts. So we've got these 4mm spacers and M6x16 bolts. Spacer goes on the back side. So spacer on the back here, just take up that offset. And then we're going to go around and do the same on the other side. So normally if we were trying to get that hard line off the back of this fitting, we would want to do that with this bolted together to keep things from twisting, but you simply can't get a wrench in here properly. Everything's just too tight. So we need to take this out first, and then we can grab this with, you can do it with a crescent wrench, or you can do it with vice grips. So you just want to hold this, the rectangular block here, so that we can crack the hard line on the back side of it. So it's just an 8mm hex here. So you can see this a bit better now that this is disconnected. So there's a bit of movement here. The hard line is long enough that it's got some flex on it. So we can kind of get to it now. This ABS line is kind of obscuring my view or your view. So I'm going to take this bolt out here. That's going to free up that ABS line, and then we're not working around it. Again, it's a 8mm hex. You just set that bolt aside. So we've got this wire out of the way here, and now you're going to be able to see this better. You can see the hard line on the back side here. So if we just put a wrench on this hard line and try to turn it, it's just going to twist that, or the nut here, I should say, the inverted flare nut. If we put a wrench on there and just try and back this out without holding this, we're just going to twist the hard line off, which is obviously something we need to avoid at all costs. So when you come down here, you're going to take your crescent wrench or your vice grips, either or, and tighten them around this body here so that we can keep it from spinning. And then we're going to loosen this. It's important to remember that because the nut is on the back side of this, we need to turn this like we're trying to tighten it. So we're turning this clockwise to loosen that. Like so. So getting it loose and getting the hard line off of this is not the challenging part. The challenging part is getting the new brake line attached without cross-threading this hard line, and getting this fitting so it sits flat on here without twisting the hard line. So you get it loose enough that you can do it with your hands, especially if your bike's new. If it's low miles, this stuff shouldn't be dirty. So on the back side of the triple here, there's a big P-clamp that holds the brake line and the ABS line. So we're just going to take that off. And we can let that hang. Just be aware, yours will have brake fluid leaking out of it. This one's been apart a few times and didn't get bled the last time, so it's not an issue on this one, but just make sure that this isn't getting on any of the plastic. Brake fluid will make a mess of ABS plastic, and that is what this material is. It's rigid, cracks easy, and is really not very happy with brake fluid. So if you do get any on that plastic, make sure you clean it off immediately, or else you will have problems later. So we're coming over to your parts kit here. We've got 3 brake lines. These are the lines that go from the manifold to the calipers. Here, this one that's got the 90 on it, and then the weird fitting here is the one that we need for this next step. So when you put this in here, the line is going to be going over to the right side of the motorcycle. If you're standing here doing this from the front, obviously it's on the left side. But we're going to slide the fitting, or slide the hard line into the pocket in the fitting, and then try and get this fitting finger started, or just started by hand here, so we can make sure that we're not cross-threading anything. If you clean your bike really well before you start this, get up here with a small wire brush and clean those threads out. This will go a lot easier. So I just threaded that in by hand. If you want, you can take, I don't have any needle nose vice grips handy to show you, but just gonna use regular needle nose. If you grab just behind the flare nut, that will keep this thing from pulling back in behind the rad, and then you can work with it a little bit easier. So you would just clamp that on there, not hard enough that you're gonna damage that line, but just to keep it kind of out where you can work with it. And then same deal here. I'm gonna grab our crescent wrench or vice grips, whichever you prefer. We're gonna hold this block so it is horizontal. So that's the big trick here. You wanna make sure that this thing is going to sit flat against here without twisting the hard line. So we're just holding it there, and it looks pretty good. And then of course we're going counterclockwise to tighten it because this thing's on the opposite side. And don't over tighten that fitting. If you happen to cross thread this in here and you need to change out that hard line, you have a ton of disassembly to get all of this stuff off the bike. So we're gonna take the OEM bolt here, put this back in. And like I said, this is a lot easier to do on a bike lift. So we're going to separate the ABS line from the brake line. So there's a couple of the sheet metal P-clamps. We're just going to pull them apart like that, set them aside. They will not get reused. Your bike is going to have plastic clips like this that are holding them together. So you just want to pull them apart here. You can see how they just click together. Some of these are lost on this bike, so we have zip ties, but you can see it's just barbs here that fit together. So if you just push them off the side, they come apart. Like so. We've got the ABS line separated from the brake hoses. So we're gonna take the banjo bolts out here for the brake lines. Again, you're gonna have brake fluid leaking out of here, so just make sure you have a container down here. We've got copper washers included in the kit, so you don't need to reuse these. So just doing the same on the left-hand side. So your front brake hose is free and you can set it aside. So your kit has new banjo bolts. If you want to reuse the factory Honda ones, you can do that. I kind of prefer these ones, honestly. They've got a little more meat on the bolt head here. These guys are a little more low profile, but this is what Galfer supplies us with. You will need to use these at the brake manifold, but for the calipers you can reuse the black Honda ones if you like. So new copper washer on the bolt, and the brake hoses have got a very slight bend on one end. That end is going to be down here at the caliper. We'll thread the banjo bolt back into the caliper here. So we've got that slight angle is pointing away from the caliper and away from the bleed screw. So same deal, banjo bolt, 2 fresh sealing washers. Get our main bracket here. We're going to put the M8 by 100 bolt through. We're going to put the non-threaded side of the taper lock and then the threaded side of the taper lock, spin them together here. And then we've got the steering stem hole here. So we're going to slide the taper lock up into that hole and the bracket sits like that. So we're going to take an M6 by 16 bolt here. This is a safety screw. So on the back side of the triple, right here, is the bolt that had the P-clamp that was holding the factory stuff on. This bolt is going to go through that hole and then into those threads. And that's just in case this taper lock happens to back out, that this isn't going to drop out and lock up your front wheel. And it's a bit too tight in here to get light and camera and tools. So that's why I showed you the before. I'll get this installed and I'll show you the after. And I recommend getting this P-clamp in here, or P-clamp, this safety bolt in here, and not tight, just kind of snug before you tighten up the taper lock. Don't recommend that you put Loctite on the taper lock. If you try and take it out later, you're going to have a really difficult time. So with that taper lock tight, we can snug up that safety bolt. So we've got the safety bolt there, and we've got a threaded hole there for the brake lines to go to. So we've got our brake line here that comes off the hard line. We're going to feed it between the right fork leg and the steering stem. And then we're going to go around the back of the steering stem and then back to the right-hand side, what we got going on here. So we're coming off of the hard line here. This is the hose here. It comes around, and it comes around the back side, and then back to the right-hand side of this block. And I'll show you why in a minute. So we're gonna grab our double banjo with 1 copper washer and 2 more washers in hand. We're going to take the top of our caliper line, put the bolt through, put another washer, and then we're going to grab the line that comes off the hard line, put that in, and then 1 more washer, like so. So that's what you should be looking at. And then it's going to get threaded into this hole on the manifold. And again, just a bit tight in here to be working with light and tools and camera. And you should look like that when you're done. And then we're going to go around and do the other side. Again, banjo, copper washer, copper washer. When you get the lines in properly, this is what they're going to look like. This guy is basically perpendicular to the ground, not this, but if you look at this from the side, that is basically pointed straight down, which is what we want. And then the upper brake hose is directly pointed up, perpendicular from our brake manifold. So that tucks our brake line in nicely behind the triple clamp here. And the reason for this weird routing is that because we're coming from here and we need to attach here, the hose just wasn't long enough and there's way too much flex on it. So by going around here, we have a much longer hose. And it's like a clock spring. It kind of winds and unwinds itself as you turn. So it is important to have this hose in the right spot. You want to make sure that it is not going to get pinched between your steering stops, which are right here, which is why we have this down here. So if you have a scissor jack that you can put your bike on to get the weight off the front so that you can cycle the steering back and forth just to double check that, that's ideal. So we're going to take one of our P-clamps and we're going to put it around the brake line in this orientation, the flat side facing out and kind of the bubble point on the P facing in. And then take a 6x16 bolt through our cable guide bracket here, and then a flat washer and an M6 nylock. So it's just going to connect like that. So on the left-hand side, we've got the ABS line here to contend with as well. So we're just going to route this it's on the outside of the fork leg here, and then we're going to put it between the caliper and the caliper mount here, the casting. And then when we put this P-clamp on, again, the flat side is going to be the outside. And then we're going to put the hose and the ABS line in here together. When you do this, make sure that you're not pinching the hose with the metal part of the line here. And again, just make sure that this isn't too tight. You've got a little bit of movement here and it's not getting pinched. So on your ABS line, there's a couple of steel mounts. You can pop them off and you can set them aside. They won't be reused. We're going to grab the zip ties that are in the kit and we're going to attach the ABS line to the brake line. And you can use 2 or 3 in here. So we've got that attached. You're going to notice that we've got some extra line here. We're going to pop this fairing off and we're going to tuck this line in against the frame rail on this side. So we've got the 3 bolts here that hold it on. There's a plastic clip on the back side here. And we've got 2 plastic clips here. There's one there and there's one up here. I'm going to pop those out. And then we just grab the panel and give it a little wiggle. There's some rubber bushings in here and pins that hold them together. Like so that's these dowels here. And then there's rubber mounts here. There's 3 of them. On top of the rad, you can see this line here. This is that ABS line. So you can grab it and pull this through. We're just trying to get rid of the extra slack because we don't want that on the outside of the bike. It's going to end up getting caught on something and making a mess. So up top here, we've got a wire clip, or a wire that's snapped into a clip, I should say. We're going to put a zip tie around here. We want to make sure that the ABS line is up and out of the way. So I've just got the line here zip tied. Just want to make sure there's some slack in there. Not too much, because again, we want to keep an eye on your steering stop to make sure that line is never going to get pinched in that steering stop. Then we take our last zip tie here. We've just got this small extra loop of cable, and we can put this around the frame rail. And we can grab this extra ABS sensor line here, and then we can put this panel back on. So when you go to put it back on, I'm going to start with these push pins here, the 3 of them, and then there is a little tab here that has to clip underneath the plastic up top here, so there's kind of a lot going on. Like so, and then we're going to put our bolts back in here and our 2 push pins. So this Polysport fender is my favorite of anything that's available that I've come across anyway. Like I said, we use it on all of our shop bikes for our high fender kits, available in a bunch of different colors. It's got an air intake scoop here, and it vents out here, and it's got the vents on the back, so this is sitting in front of the rad, so it is blocking some of the air that would normally get to the rad, but because of these vents and because of this snorkel, this one has very little effect on the cooling for your bike. Some of the bigger fenders, some of the really full-size motocross fenders, they come down, they cover a really good chunk of the rad, so you can see some cooling deficiencies when you're using one of the big fenders, but we've never had an issue with these. In your kit, there are 4 of these M6x20 Euro head bolts with large flange. And then we've got 4 M6 fender washers, so just a bit more surface area there because we're going through the plastic fender. We don't want to pull through. So we're going to add Loctite to these bolts, and then we're going to pop it up into the manifold bracket. So because this bracket does slide back and forth and changes the bolt pattern, it can be a little annoying to get in the spot that you need. So it's important to make sure you get all 4 bolts started before you fully tighten anything down, or else that adapter can get locked into place and you may not be able to get the fender bolted up the way you want. Once we have the fender on here, we can take the P-clamps and we're going to put them into the fender. The location of this, if you have these hoses in the right spot, basically there's a raised section right here on the fender, and we're just going to put a hole right here. There's a kind of a body line there, body line there. It's not rocket science by any means. We're just taking this. We don't want to put any load on the hoses here, so we're just going to hold that in a good spot, and then we're going to drill this. So the bolts going through here are 6 mil, 1/4 inch is 6.4. So if you use a 1/4 inch bit, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to get the bolt through. So you take your 6x16 socket head bolt, put a nut or a washer on it, slide it through, and then put a nut and a flat washer on the back side. And then just grab it with your 10 mil wrench. And then it's a 5 mil Allen to tighten it. And then we're going to go to the other side and do the same. So same thing, P-clamp around. And you may have to move. I put the zip tie in the wrong spot here. I should have zip tied it after I had this P-clamp in here, but. So again, a bolt, a washer. Washer and a nylock on the back side. And I'm just going to put a zip tie around the line in the ABS wire. Just one more over top here. So when you go to put the fork guards on, you're going to have to drill these out to 8 millimeters or 5/16. We use these fork guards on a few different kits, and the through hole here is about 6.5 mil. The bolts that we use to hold these onto the fork guard adapters are 8 mil bolts. So a 5/16 drill bit through the holes here. Make sure you don't have your hand on the backside, obviously. So we're going to take the M8x16 bolts, the button heads, and drop them through the fork guard holes and onto our adapters. Totally changes the look of the bike. So our mechanical install is all wrapped up. The only thing left to do is bleed the brakes. Bleeding the brakes is standard issue brake bleeding. I'm not going to go through it in this video. I will put a link to a good how-to bleed brakes video though in the description. If you have any question, as always, info@camel-adv.com. Thanks for watching. Never fails. Every time I go to shoot video, I come in on the weekends at night, so my noisy neighbors in the commercial bay here aren't here. It never fails. I just get set up, and then there's always something new. Of course, we've got a train in the back, moving cars around, back and forth, spooling up, slowing down, screechy ass brakes. So I guess we're gonna pause this and pick it up later. You don't really need any special tools to do this install, but if you have a bike lift, it really makes life a lot easier.